The storm had settled into a low, constant growl across the ridges, a sound like distant machinery grinding against the bones of the mountains. Sergeant Kthar of Vorn adjusted his visor and surveyed the frozen valley below. The human settlement lay in ruins, a scatter of wooden roofs half buried in snow, lifeless and primitive. His squad of Galactic Marines stood around him, their armor gleaming dull silver against the pale light, each movement accompanied by the soft hiss of powered servos. They were bred for perfection, sculpted for war, and utterly convinced that no native life form could threaten them. "Thermal scan complete," reported Trooper Resh, his voice distorted through the comms. "Negative organic signatures. Just cold carcasses and dead stone." Thar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Dead stone is all these humans are, Resh. Old, brittle, and slow to understand their extinction." He turned his gaze to the distant peak, where the wind cut ribbons through the snow. Somewhere beyond that ridge, the last of the Terran resistance hid, silent and invisible. Command had called them ghosts, but Kthar dismissed the term as human melodrama. There were no ghosts, only targets waiting to be processed. He raised a clawed hand, signaling his platoon forward. 20 Galactic Marines advanced down the slope, their formation precise, overlapping fields of motion and thermal coverage. Drones orbited overhead, sweeping the valley with infrared and EM scans. The human base had been destroyed days ago, yet reports persisted of ambushed patrols, men vanishing without a trace, and sniper fire that came from nowhere. Kthar chalked it up to human panic, primitive soldiers imagining phantoms because their minds couldn't accept defeat. "Sergeant," Resh muttered again, "you believe the stories? They say one of them, a female, took down an entire recon team last week. 2 kilometers out." Kthar barked a laugh. "One human? Do you hear yourself, trooper? They can't even survive this cold without layers of cloth. Their rifles are mechanical antiques. They're animals with toys." He tapped his helmet, calling up the tactical overlay. "Trust your armor, not their myths." They reached the first cluster of ruins, moving between half-collapsed cabins. Frost rimed the walls, and old bullet holes told stories of a battle long over. Kthar paused near a shattered window, the glass glittering like shards of ice. "Check your sensors," he ordered. "We sweep this sector, then return to base." The Marines fanned out, methodical and unhurried. Their boots crunched in the snow. One paused near a rusted metal canister, scanning it for explosive residue. Another used a gauntlet torch to melt through a blocked doorway. The air was thin and bitter. Only the steady hum of their armor broke the silence. Then a sound, a faint metallic click, distant and soft as a sigh. Thar's head snapped up. "Hold position." He rotated his sensors, scanning the ridges above. Nothing. The sky was a blank gray, clouds dragging low across the peaks. He switched to thermal view. Still nothing but snowdrifts and dead trees. "Probably ice shifting," Resh said lightly, but his voice held a tremor. "Probably," Kthar replied, though his grip tightened around his rifle. They moved again, climbing toward the upper ridge. Snow whipped around them in sharp, stinging flakes. The terrain grew steeper, and the Marines' formation stretched thin. Kthar switched comm channels to check in with Delta Team farther east. Static answered him. He frowned. "Delta, respond." Only a hiss. "Resh, run a comms diagnostic." "Signal interference," Resh replied after a moment. "Localized jamming?" Thar's frill flattened in irritation. "Impossible. The humans don't have that technology." He was about to order a fallback to clear signal range when a dull thud echoed from above. A Marine in the lead stumbled forward and collapsed. At first Kthar thought he had tripped, but then he saw the neat, black hole punch through the back of the Marine's helmet. The armor's internal systems flickered red, then went dark. No muzzle flash, no energy signature. "Contact," Kthar barked. The Marines dove for cover, their targeting sensors sweeping the ridge. No movement, only the endless gray expanse. Resh cursed. "Where's the shot from?" "I don't know," Kthar growled. He pinged the sensors again. A ripple of static crossed his display, distorting terrain markers. His armor's AI flagged it as environmental interference. He didn't believe that for a moment. Another thud, another Marine down, struck through the visor. Then silence again. "Sergeant, permission to fire suppression rounds into the ridge," Resh said, voice sharp. Thar hesitated. Suppression fire was wasteful. Protocol demanded target verification first. But logic buckled beneath instinct. "Do it." A volley of plasma bolts tore into the high ground, turning snow to steam, shattering rock. The echo rolled through the valley like thunder. When it faded, the ridge remained lifeless. No return fire. No movement. "Did we get it?" Resh asked. Thar's answer came slow, measured. "If we did, it didn't scream." He approached the fallen Marines. Their armor systems had shut down completely. No residual heat. The shots had been perfect. Center mass, clean kills. Whoever fired knew exactly where their weak points were. That shouldn't have been possible. Thar stood over one of the bodies, scanning the entry wound. "Ballistics," he murmured. "Kinetic projectile. Subsonic velocity. Suppressed weapon." Resh stared at him. "You mean bullets?" "No one uses those anymore." Apparently, someone still does. Snow drifted over the corpses, the wind whispering through broken eaves. Thar looked up again at the ridge line, his visor reflecting the stormlight. He felt, for the first time in his long service, the unfamiliar weight of uncertainty. Another flicker of static crawled through the comms. Then, faintly, a voice. It was human, distorted, almost a whisper carried by the wind. "Two down." Resh went rigid. "Did you hear that?" Thar raised a hand for silence. The channel was empty again. Only the hum of the storm remained. He turned toward his squad, counting their remaining numbers. 18. Their formation had tightened instinctively, shoulders brushing, rifles aimed upward. The arrogance that had carried them into the valley was gone, replaced by something older and rawer. Thar activated his external speakers and shouted into the white void. "Show yourself, human." His voice echoed, swallowed by the wind. The snow answered with silence. Resh exhaled, the sound harsh through his respirator. "What now, Sergeant?" Thar looked to the ridge, where the clouds seemed to shift like slow breath. "Now," he said quietly, "we find out if ghosts bleed." Behind them, unseen, a distant scope lens blinked once, then vanished back into the storm. The rifle's cold metal bit into Erin Vale's shoulder as she adjusted her aim through the drifting snow. Her breath came in slow, measured exhales, each one forming a faint cloud that vanished into the wind. She watched the alien patrol below, gleaming armor against a field of white, arrogant and loud. They moved like they owned the world, heads high, believing their technology made them untouchable. Erin smiled without warmth. That belief was what killed them. "Winds shifting east," murmured Mason beside her. He lay flat on the roof, spotting scope pressed to his eye. His voice was quiet, steady, though Erin could hear the fatigue underneath. "They've been up here for 40 hours, surviving on rations and melted snow." "Copy," she said. Half-click gust, adjusting 2 mils right. She exhaled once, squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked gently. A distant figure dropped, lifeless before it hit the snow. Through her scope, she saw confusion ripple through the formation. Helmets jerking, weapons raised, heads turning in every direction but the right one. She tracked their movement, disciplined and detached, watching them try to make sense of something they couldn't see. "That's 3, Mason said, noting it on his slate. "Keep count quiet," she whispered. "Comms are hot." He nodded and went back to scanning. Erin shifted position slightly, the roof groaning beneath her weight. The tiles were slick with ice. Each movement had to be deliberate. One wrong sound, and the aliens would blanket the ridge with plasma. She'd seen what those weapons could do, turn steel into vapor. But precision was her advantage. Technology made them confident. She had learned to make silence her weapon. Through the scope, she watched one of the aliens kneel beside its fallen comrade. The alien commander barked orders, gesturing toward the upper ridge. Erin noted his movements, the quick, tight hand signals, the command authority. He was the one she needed to kill next. Leaders first. Fear spreads faster that way. Her eyes flicked to Mason. You still good? He gave her a small nod, though she saw the stiffness in his jaw. His hands were trembling slightly, not from fear but cold. They'd lost their heat packs 2 nights ago when a supply drone was shot down. Now, every minute they remained still was a battle against frostbite. After this patrol, he said quietly, we move west. There's an old relay station we can hole up in. Maybe, she replied, not taking her eye off the scope. If we're lucky. Luck's a myth, Mason muttered. Then we make our own. She adjusted again, steady hands against the trembling world. The next target presented itself. A Marine standing near a broken wall, scanning with an energy rifle. Erin waited for the wind to settle, then squeezed the trigger. Another clean kill. The alien's body fell backward, limbs twitching, armor smoking faintly from the kinetic impact. Below, panic spread. The commander roared something she couldn't understand, a guttural sound swallowed by the storm. Plasma bolts ripped into the snowdrifts around the buildings, vaporizing rooftops and scattering ice like shrapnel. Erin and Mason pressed flat, the heat from the shots radiating even at their distance. When it was over, Mason exhaled shakily. They're getting jumpy. Good, Erin said. Fear makes them sloppy. She checked her ammo. 5 rounds left in the mag, 2 spares in her pouch. Every bullet mattered. Every shot had to count. These aliens weren't just soldiers. They were symbols of dominance, of an empire that thought humanity was something to be studied, not fought. They had come to this world expecting surrender. Instead, they'd met silence and death in the snow. Her thoughts drifted briefly to the briefing months ago, before the invasion reached this far north. Commander Rains had paced before a flickering holomap, his voice low but certain. They see everything, but they don't understand stillness. You stay quiet, and you own them. Make them fear what they can't see. She had taken those words and built a religion around them. Got movement, Mason said suddenly. They're splitting, 2 squads flanking the valley. Classic trap, she replied. They'll try to triangulate our position with crossfire. So what do? We move first. They crawled back from the roof's edge, every motion calculated. Erin slung her rifle across her back, sliding down the snow-covered tiles to a lower perch. The wind masked their noise. Mason followed, grimacing as his knee scraped the edge of a metal gutter. He bit down a curse. They reached the far end of the structure, where the remains of a collapsed bridge offered partial cover. Erin took position again, scanning the valley through her scope. The aliens were advancing cautiously now, their perfect formation beginning to fray. They fired in bursts into the ridges, hoping to flush her out. She waited, patient. When one of them broke from cover, she fired, missed deliberately by a meter. The round struck a rock, ricocheting. The alien ducked instinctively, signaling to his unit. They turned toward the wrong direction. She smiled. Misdirection worked as well as a bullet. Think they'll call in air support? Mason asked. Not yet. They still think they can handle 2 humans. And if they can't, they'll learn the same way we did. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The wind eased, and the silence became heavy again, stretching between the peaks like a living thing. Erin used that pause to reload, the motion smooth from years of practice. Her gloves were stiff with frost, her fingers numb, but her rhythm never faltered. Through the scope, she caught sight of the commander again. He was pacing now, scanning the ridges with his rifle raised. He looked human for a heartbeat, frustrated, desperate to regain control. She lined the crosshairs on the center of his visor. Into the line, she whispered. The shot cracked softly, a whisper lost to the wind. The commander staggered, fell to his knees, then dropped face first into the snow. His troops froze, disoriented, leaderless. Mason let out a low whistle. That was the one calling orders, he said. Erin nodded, eyes still on the scope. Now they'll start thinking, or start dying faster. She lowered her rifle, resting her chin against the stock. The storm thickened again, swallowing the valley. The aliens began shouting, their words lost in static. Somewhere in the white chaos, fear was taking root. Erin closed her eyes for a moment, breathing slow, steady. The mission wasn't over. It had only just begun. The snow fell harder now, thick flakes swirling through the valley like drifting ash. The Galactic Marines moved slower, their perfect coordination fractured into jittering lines of motion. Their armor lights blinked erratically, flickering against the storm. Somewhere above them, the ghost still hunted. They had stopped calling her that in mockery. Now, they whispered it in fear. Private Joran's breathing rasped inside his helmet. "Sergeant, I can't get a signal out. Comms are jammed completely." His voice trembled. Thar didn't answer right away. He crouched beside the last ridge, visor scanning the white void. The commander's death had gutted their chain of command. Every time he tried to reroute leadership protocols, the interface glitched, looping static over his display. He didn't understand how the humans were doing it. They weren't supposed to have the technology for this kind of interference. "We keep moving," he said finally. "Find higher ground and re-establish line of sight. Once we can transmit, we call orbit for extraction." Extraction. The word sounded almost pitiful now. The ghost had reduced his proud platoon to half strength. The rest were scattered, paranoid, firing at shadows. Thar adjusted his rifle grip. Somewhere deep in his mind, the first threads of doubt had begun to fray his composure. A sound broke the storm, a single, sharp crack. One more Marine dropped without a cry. The squad froze, scanning the ridges. Thar's sensors registered nothing. No heat, no motion, only the echo of that one impossible shot. "She's watching," whispered Joran. "She's waiting for us to move." Thar silenced him with a glare he couldn't see. "She's human," he said. "Flesh bleeds. Flesh tires. Remember that." But as the words left his mouth, he wasn't sure he believed them. Up on the ridge, Erin watched the alien line falter. Through her cracked scope, the world was a blur of white and silver, shapes bending through fog. Her gloves were stiff, fingers raw, one nail split and bleeding. Mason lay beside her, a dark stain spreading from his side. He was conscious, barely. His breathing came in uneven gasps. "Still here," he muttered, though his voice was thin. "Still counting." "Don't talk," she said. "Save your strength." He gave a weak grin. "You sound like Rains." "Yeah, well," she whispered, adjusting her rifle. "He's dead, so maybe don't jinx me." Below, the aliens moved again, slow, cautious, trying to circle her position. Erin shifted to a new firing point, dragging herself across the snow. Her legs ached, every joint screaming from a cold. She ignored it. She had 3 rounds left, 3 bullets to end this. She raised the scope again, finding Thar by the glow of his armor. He was bigger than the others, his movements deliberate. She could tell by the way he held himself. He wasn't panicking. Not yet. He was calculating, trying to understand her rhythm. She needed to break it before he learned. She lined up her shot, adjusting for wind. A breath, a heartbeat, then a sharp hiss behind her. She spun. A drone, small and angular, hovered above the ridge, its lens locking onto her heat signature. Her heart jolted. She fired, shattering at midair, but the damage was done. The aliens had her position. "Mason, move!" she shouted, grabbing his arm. Plasma bolts screamed through the snow, searing the air where they'd been seconds before. She dragged him toward the edge, sliding behind a rocky outcrop. Heat flared from the blasts, melting layers of ice around them. Mason coughed, his hand clutching his wound. "They found us," he rasped. "No," she said through gritted teeth. "I let them." She reached in her vest and pulled a small charge, her last shaped explosive. "We make them come closer." Mason gave a faint nod. "You're insane. Always have been." She armed the charge, setting it beneath a snowdrift, then crawled higher up the ridge, using the chaos below as cover. Plasma fire tore into the slope, but none of it found her. The aliens advanced cautiously, scanning with overlapping sensors. Erin waited until she saw the first one step past the hidden charge. Then she pressed the trigger. The explosion ripped through the valley, a thunderous bloom of fire and snow. The shockwave knocked her back, ringing in her ears. When the smoke cleared, 3 aliens were down, their armor fractured, lights dim. The others retreated instinctively, shouting into dead calms. Mason laughed weakly beside her. Nice shot. She gave him a grim smile. One left. Through the haze, Thar stood. His armor was scorched, one lens cracked, but he was alive. He stared up toward her position, weapon raised, scanning. Their eyes met across the distance, soldier to soldier. For a moment, there was no empire, no invasion, just two predators testing who would outlast the other. Erin adjusted her aim, ignoring the tremor in her hand. Thar fired first. A flash of plasma, slicing past her shoulder. She ducked, rolled, came up in a crouch. Her scope was useless now, lens shattered completely. She aimed by instinct, breath shallow, heart pounding. Come on, she whispered. Just one more. Thar advanced through the snow, steps heavy, rifle glowing with charge. Erin steadied her arm. The world narrowed to him and the silence between them. When he raised his weapon again, she fired. The bullet struck clean through his chest plate. He staggered, dropped to one knee, and fell face first into the snow. His rifle clattered beside him, the glow fading. Erin lowered her weapon slowly. For a long moment, she didn't move. The storm howled around her, erasing footprints, swallowing sound. Mason's breathing was shallow but steady. She crawled to him, pressing a gloved hand against his shoulder. It's over, she said quietly. He looked up at her, eyes half closed. You sure? Erin glanced down the valley. The last of the alien lights flickered and went dark. For now, she helped him to his feet, slinging his arm around her shoulders. Together, they began the slow descent through the snow, leaving behind the shattered ridge and the corpses buried beneath it. Above them, the storm raged on, endless and uncaring. Behind them, one of the alien helmets flickered with static. A recording activated automatically, transmitting a single fragment of data before power died completely. In the Empire's archives, that transmission would later be analyzed and replayed countless times. It contained only 5 words, spoken in a human voice. Mission complete. Ghost out.